New York announced itself as the penultimate stage of the season, the last stage before the big final in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, with 5 riders still in contention for the championship. But the championship leader, Christian Ahlmann, could not attend New York, and that offered a great possibility to his 4 rivals. 2 of those rivals didn't finish the Grand Prix and didn't score big points. 1 rival went clear, and 1 rival took the lead away from him without jumping clear in the Lgct Grand Prix of New York. Lots to talk about. Here's a new episode of the Lgct Grand Prix analysis. Christian Ahlmann wasn't present in New York, but all 4 other rivals out of the top 5, they all qualified for the Grand Prix, and that made the Grand Prix super interesting. But only 1 of those rivals went clear, and that was Peter de Vos. We'll have a look at his round in the head-to-head against the eventual winner, against Daniel Deusser, later on. So how did the others do? Well, Ben Meer in the end came out as kind of the big winner of New York, as he overtook the lead of Christian Ahlmann, and there's actually a good reason for that. Have a look at what happens to Ben Meer. He gets a very early fault on the Liverpool, that is fence 5 on the course with the Faltic HB, and from there on, Ben Meer really rides this Grand Prix as a table A against the clock to finish as fast as possible on his 4 faults, and he does so. He finishes quite high, and with that he scores a lot of points. Imagine that he would have had a fault later in the course, he would have finished much slower, would have been ranked lower, and maybe would not be in the lead going into Riyadh, where he might win his 3rd title. So that is Ben Meer. We know that de Vos went clear, Ahlmann wasn't there. There's also still Maron Zanotelli and Derek Kenny to find out. Here is Zanotelli, has exactly the same fault as Meer on the Liverpool very early, and then soon after a fault follows on the downtown Oxer on the back rail, and Zanotelli decides to retire. And it's actually also kind of the same situation for Derek Kenny. Also, the Irishman doesn't manage to complete his Grand Prix of New York, as he first has his first fault on the downtown Oxer. Again on the back rail, same fault as Zanotelli, by the way, and then there's another fault later on, after which he decides to retire. That was Derek Kenny on Volnay-du-Bois-de-Ville. That means that Kenny and Zanotelli didn't score big points in New York and actually feel like they are knocked out of the race for the championship. But let's have a look at the technical line, and Derek Kenny and Zanotelli already introduced that line to us. We're actually talking about the line from Oxer number 7, and then a long corner into the triple combination and a right bend to a bush Oxer. What do you have to focus on? What do we have to look at here in this line? If you think about it, the line from 7 to 8 is actually quite long, so you can't really call that a real related distance. The line from the vertical to the Oxer is an 8-stride approach, but on a 90-degree angle. We'll talk about that at the end of this edition of the Lgct Grand Prix analysis. But what most riders feared were those 2 verticals on 11.5 meters. That's one thing. You had to come in quite slow to make sure you had enough room in the 2-stride approach in 8B and 8C. But to make it a little tricky, Vezzani did make this Oxer 1.60 m wide, so he had a lot of width on his first Oxer. It wasn't the tallest, but it sure was a wide Oxer, so all the focus was on the triple combination, and that might explain why some had first faults on fence 7. Let's have a look at a few that were faulted on fence 7. Here, for example, we have Lily Keenan, comes on the inside line, and she takes the front rail out. Don't forget that with the first riders, we saw the back rail go with Zanotelli and with Derek Kenny. And there, Lily Keenan already introduces us to the next problem inside that triple combination. But it's the front rail on Queensland E, the horse that jumped so successfully back in Paris. This is Skylar Riley, another American. And you could see that the horse kind of cut the corner. Robin de Pontuel jumped from the right to the left, from the outside to the inside of the line. And if we go back to the 3D, to the course that was designed by Uljana Vizzani, you can see how that is actually positioned. Pick out a different color, and it's very easy for the horses to jump from the outside to the inside. It's much more difficult to jump to that side. Lots of horses jumped from the outside to the inside and took that front rail out. Lily Keenan got quite straight, but Skylar Riley sure did get it on the angle and pushed the front rail out. So from that oxer, there were 12, 13, but also 11 and even 10 strides into the triple combination. Lots of different approaches. A lot had to do with how you approached that oxer. If you jumped the oxer from the outside to the inside, you came on the inside line and it was easy to ride a stride less, if that was the plan. If that was not the plan, you were forced to ride a stride less. If you jumped it to the outside, you had the room to maybe get an extra stride, but an extra stride doesn't always give you room for the oxer. You maybe have less space, but still not the perfect approach. And then it was also about the rideability, because as you can see here, it is actually it's quite an angle that you find here in that turn. You have to have the horses well focused, well on the hind leg, that they don't focus, for example, on this double combination. Some horses did get a little bit distracted as they were steered towards the triple combination. They got distracted to that double. Let's have a look at a few examples of what could go wrong in New York. This is Philip Weishaupt with Kobe. Nice and straight, and then on the standard 12, but you see here at the takeoff,